Using the volume and tone knobs on your guitar can be a way to add an exciting dimension to your guitar playing. This video will explore ways to set up your guitar to make this easier to do. I am by no means the inventor of this technique. The first guy I ever saw do it was Phil Keaggy back in the 70s. He's known for playing gospel music nowadays, but he started out with a rock band in the late 60s called the Glass Harp. What he was doing with volume swells back then was just staggering. He is indeed the king of volume dynamics, getting everything from violin to cello tones. He also developed a way of playing almost like tremolo, but rather than being at a set time interval, would follow along with the melody. But Keaggy was not the first to use volume swells on a standard guitar. He claims the first person he ever saw do it was Zalyanowski with the Lovin' Spoonful. You can't see him moving the knob here, but you can hear it in the song Daydream from 1965.
Daydream, custom made for a daydreaming boy. I'm lost in a daydream, dreaming about my bundle of
I've heard of other guys doing this before Zal, but this is the first recorded instance of volume swells that I'm aware of. The first time I ever saw someone do it on video or film was actually Terry Kath of the band Chicago in 1969 at the Beat Club in Germany, although he wasn't using his pinky. Of course, you can use a volume pedal to create swells, and steel guitar players have been doing that since at least the 50s. But you can usually do it much faster on a regular guitar. What makes Phil Keaggy so much better at this than anybody is primarily his use of linear potentiometers, along with a couple of other little tricks. I had it figured out maybe 25 years ago, but would never tell anybody out of respect for him. But now that he's in his late 60s and his heyday is long behind him, I think it's time to let the cat out of the bag. Almost all guitars come with audio taper pots as a standard item, and if you're not planning on doing volume swells or tone swells, then audio pots are generally better for most people. But you'll never do quick staccato swells with linear pots. A linear pot will bring the signal up much faster than an audio pot. You only need to turn the knob about a quarter turn to go from 0 to nearly full on. That's the first and most important step in doing volume and tone swells. Buy yourself some linear pots, or at least one for the volume control that's closest to your pinky finger. Something else that helps a lot is to make your pots easier to turn. Most pots, like the CTS pots I use, contain what's commonly called dampening grease in the bottom of them. It's there to make the knob turn smoothly, but if you want to do swells, it helps to take that grease out so the knob turns easier. Now don't worry, the knob won't free spin or anything. It'll still have some pressure, but it'll be about twice as easy to turn as it was before. This is a fairly easy procedure to do, and I'll show you how to do it. The CTS pot has 4 tabs on the corners that must be pulled up in order to get it apart. Pay attention to this notch in the bottom of the pot. When you put it back together, remember that the notch should be in the middle of the 3 lugs. You'll need a small jeweler's type of screwdriver to get the tabs up. Once they're up, turn the pot over and pull the bottom straight up. Try to keep the other parts together and lay them to one side. You can see this pink grease, or maybe a different color in yours, that looks like Vaseline in the bottom. Simply wipe it out with a tissue or cloth, and there's no need to get it spotless, just give it a good wipe. Then put the pot back together. You should find afterwards that the shaft is about twice as easy to turn as it was before. Now solder everything up and you're done with step 2. The next thing you need is the right kind of knob for the pot. This is a matter of finding what works for you. Do some experimentation. I think most people prefer smaller knobs for doing swells, unless you have very long fingers. You can see that Keaggy uses a smaller bell-shaped knob. and I believe he has a rubber grip on it. It looks very much like the old Ibanez speed knobs. No matter what knob you use, it really helps to have a rubber grip. I had a friend growing up who used to just tie a rubber band around his volume knob. For my Telecaster, I like using these screw-on knobs made by Hipshot. Unfortunately, Hipshot only makes these in the 6mm shaft size, which is common in Asia, but they won't fit a standard 1/4-inch CTS solid shaft, so I use pots with slotted shafts instead. Besides, the only 250K linear pot CTS cells have a split shaft anyway. And of course, with a Telecaster or Stratocaster, you'll generally want to use a 250K pot. If you're using a guitar with humbuckers, then you'll probably want a 500K pot. These split shafts are the type you would normally use the kind of knob that pushes on and off, but even though the Hipshot are a screw-on design, they'll fit on the shaft, albeit not exactly as straight as I would like, but not bad. You might want to experiment with other pot manufacturers if you want a solid shaft 250K linear pot, but be warned that they're hard to find. Also, Telecasters get a nice wah-wah sound on the rear pickup by manipulating the tone control. No other guitar does this nearly as well. It works best on the higher strings. I found that a .047 capacitor in the tone circuit works pretty well for this. Many modern Telecasters come with a .027, so you might want to swap it out unless you like it like that. One last thing, it helps to have a good bit of volume on your amp. The louder it is, the less far you have to turn the knobs to get a good jump in volume or tone. It just makes things easier. Well, that's it, folks. The only thing left to do is practice. Take it from an old fat guitar player that, even with the right equipment, you'll find doing swells in the caliber of guitars like Phil Keaggy takes a ton of practice.